Good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are studying the Word of God, and we're starting where we started at Genesis chapter 1. Today we will be on Genesis chapter 6. I hope you have been keeping up with the reading. We are doing 2 chapters a day, and make sure that you are tracking your progress, right? Let's begin at Genesis chapter 6, verse 1. Now it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them. Verse 2. That the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. So, sons of God, this language is now introduced. So far, he's just called man, mankind, or men, as he just did in the first verse, right? So many argue whether sons of God are men, maybe wicked men, or fallen angels, or angelic beings. But the prior verse already says that men begin to multiply. So why would the text now read, instead of men, sons of God, right? And then they took those daughters of men to become wives. So we'll see where else it mentions sons of God, and then we'll come back to this question, right? Verse 3. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, for he is indeed flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. Okay, so the last chapter we read about the genealogy of Adam, specifically Seth, right? And how these men were living well past 500 years old. So now God puts that limitation on the spirit that he breathed into us, and he limits it to 120 years, right? Verse 4 says, There were giants on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. So clearly, the sons of God are not the same as regular men. Okay, can you agree to that? The giants described here that resulted from them picking the daughters of men and marrying them. These were called Nephilim, and they were so large that they made human beings look like grasshoppers. Right? Let's go to verse 5. Then the Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Right? We're not even I don't even think we're 10 generations in. So at this point, it is so much wickedness going on that God intervenes. Okay? So even lessening our years here on the earth, that was not enough. It was so much wickedness because we saw how disobedience entered that caused the shame. Then we see the shame, and then also fear. And then we see with Cain, you have sibling rivalry, you see anger, you see violence, and then you see 2 generations even after that, you see Lamech killing another man, and this is not even 10 generations in. Right? So verse 6 says, And the Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved in his heart. Can you imagine what he feels now? Verse 7. So the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping thing, and birds of the air, for I am sorry that I have made them. But I noticed in that verse, God did not say anything about the sea creatures. So why was he so angry with what he created out of the earth? Right? It's a question to ponder. Verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. Verse 9. And this is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. We only saw that with Enoch, right? That Enoch walked with God. So Noah was favored by God, right? He was righteous in spite of his wicked surroundings, right? He was perfect in his generation, meaning he was blameless, he was complete, morally whole. And these attributes could only come from walking with God, right? So verse 10. And Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Verse 11. The earth also was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. It doesn't take a whole lot, right? What did God tell Cain about sin? What was sin? It was at the door, right? Sin is at the door. Its desire is for you, but you should overcome it, right? You should not bow to it, okay? Verse 13, and God said to Noah, the end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. Verse 14. Then he says, make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and outside with pitch. So an ark is described as a vessel with a part carved out, right? Same as what Moses was found floating in as a baby, except this was on a way larger scale, right? The wood used for the ark was very durable. Many say that it was cypress because it can withstand water, right? And it could also withstand however long that they were going to need to float, right? Because there was not an engine on the ark, right? So he trusted God even in building this, knowing that part of the instructions was not to have an engine for this large vessel, right? And so he also had to make different rooms in the ark and cover every part on the inside and the outside with the substance that would make it airtight, right? So not only is he building this thing, he's not having any direction or ability to put it in any direction. He's also creating rooms in it and putting a substance on the inside and on the outside to make it airtight. So verse 15. And this is how you shall make it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, right? Its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits, right? So God tells Noah what he's going to do, right? Why he's going to do it, and then gives him instruction to save him and his family. So we'll see this pattern throughout the entire Bible, right? When you are righteous, when you are upright, look how much information is given to you, right? And this is how the righteous will never be moved. This is how we know the righteous is never forsaken. Okay, we have direct access to the plans of God in detail, right? Through him himself. But oftentimes we don't obey. Imagine if he had not obeyed one of the things that God instructed him to do, what would have happened, right? So the length of the ark that he made, it was 300 cubits. And a cubit is about from the length of your elbow to your fingertips, about 18 inches, right? So 300 cubits would be about 450 feet. It was 50 cubits wide. That's about 75 feet. Okay. And then 30 cubits tall. That's about 45 feet. So the ark was a little more than about 3/4 of an acre. I'm just telling you in our terms so you can understand what he had to build, how big it was. And this was just him, right? We'll see in the following chapter what everybody else thought about him building this ark, right? So verse 16, you shall make a window for the ark, and you shall finish it to a cubit from above, and set the door of the ark in its side. You shall make it with lower, second, and third decks, right? Verse 17. And behold, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy from under heaven all flesh in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. Okay. Verse 18. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. So because of Noah's favor, his sons and their wives were saved as well, right? And so it makes a difference who your family is, right? It makes a difference what's in proximity to you. You don't know if you're in the company of someone who's blessed or someone who's cursed, right? So this is the first time that God explicitly makes a covenant and not just give a command, right? So there was an implied covenant with Adam, right? Because God gave commands and consequences and blessings. So there was an implied covenant, but this is the first time God is actually saying, I am making a covenant. I'm going to establish my covenant with you. So a covenant involves promises and obligations or commitments, right, from two parties that are in a relationship with one another. In this covenant with Noah and the animals, there was also a sign that God left to confirm that covenant, to be a reminder of that covenant, right? So you can make covenants with people. If they're people, things, right? So it matters what you agree to. Does that make sense? It absolutely matters what you are agreeing to. Verse 19. And of every living thing of all flesh, you shall bring two of every sort into the ark to keep them alive with you. This is another instruction, right? They shall be male and female. There's no other sex. Just wanted to highlight that. Verse 20. Of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and of every creeping thing of the earth after its kind, two of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. How did they know where to come? Like, how did all of the animals in the earth, all of the creeping things, know to come two by two into the earth? Interesting. Verse 21. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. Verse 22. Thus Noah did. I'm going to say that again. Thus Noah did, according to all that God commanded him, so he did. Is that your story? Thus, whatever your name is, did. Right? Thus we did. And did according to all that God has commanded us. I want you to think about the things that God has commanded you. And if it was a covenant that he was making with you, that means there's an obligation. That means there's a commitment on your part as well as his part. So we often like to go to God with what he said he would do. But we forget the part that we're supposed to do, right? That's what completes a covenant. Okay? Do you know that if God commands a thing or requests a thing from you, that means that it absolutely can be done? For instance, we're going throughout the Bible. We need to know the word of God. It needs to be hidden in our heart, right? Why? So that we may not sin against him. Because where sin, at the door. Right? So this was the end of chapter 6. We'll be reading chapter 7 at 7 p.m. tonight. If you're just now starting with us, please go back and read Genesis 1 through 5. Just catch up, right? And if you can read more than 2 chapters a day, that's awesome. But still come back and put anything that God has revealed to you about yourself, about him, about maybe your environment, that, ways and things that you were looking for answers for, and they were in the first book, right? That's always fun. Now we know there's plenty of answers in like the books of wisdom and Proverbs and Ecclesiastes and things like that. But it's exciting that at the very beginning of the Bible, we're finding answers to questions that we may have had 5, 10, 20 years, right? So that concluded Genesis chapter 6. God bless you all. Have a blessed, prosperous day.